Vietnam and Japan were the only two nations to ever defeat Genghis Khan and the Mongols. The Vietnamese won due to their superior military skills, and the Japanese were saved by a giant tsunami. Of course, Japan was saved by a tsunami. Did you know the Mongols held the largest land empire ever? I went on a school trip to Belgium once and was taught about the muddy conditions during the war. One story always stuck with me. A soldier is stuck in the mud at waist level. His comrade rushes over and tries to help him, asking, "Can't you move your legs?" The soldier replies, "No, they're still in the stirrups." He was in mud up to his waist, still sat on his horse. During the Korean War, a pair of American soldiers were cutting down a tree in the DMZ and the North Koreans axed them to death. So the US goes in with some ships, a couple tanks and like 100 soldiers. They chop down the tree, and leave. Operation Paul Bunyan, the Battle of Stamford Bridge. In 1066 the Vikings were caught off guard by 15,000 Saxons. Most Vikings had their armor with their ships far away. King Harold sent a lone berserker to stall the enemy for as long as he can on a bridge. He stood his ground against 15,000 Saxons on a bridge for 1 hour, killing 40 of them. The Saxons had to go under the bridge and impale him on a spear to kill him. That is one of the most badass moments I've heard of. Jesus, what a beast. That's all for today, guys. Thanks so much for the support.
Expelled college students of Reddit, why are you expelled? I shot a firework out of my ass in a campus-owned house. Installing Bitcoin miners on all the computers in a video editing lab. Apparently you can get kicked out for not showing up to class and failing everything. Who knew? For being off campus with a member of the opposite sex without proper supervision. No. Seriously. I had a friend who skipped all classes and failed everything because all he wanted to do was play LOL. He got a warning that if he didn't get his grades up he would be suspended for a year. He got suspended. When he went back to the school a year later the same thing happened again. Now he can't go back to that college again. My roommate got expelled for basically never going to class. Not even when there was an important exam. He spent all night smoking weed, with me, and playing video games, not with me, and then slept all day until about 5 PM. Like I would wake up, go to my 8:30 lecture, get lunch, go to lab 2-5, then come back to my room and my roommate was still sleeping. I found out the following summer that he had gotten a letter from the university asking him not to come back. Last I heard of him, he had enrolled at a commuter school, where he made the dean's list. I had a particularly rough semester and got D in a class that I had previously dropped after about a week the prior semester because my schedule was too busy then. Department rules say that you can't attempt a class for credit more than twice, including drops, so I got kicked out of my major. I was 14 hours away from graduation at the time. The academic advisor said that I could either change my major, so basically start college all over, or duck off for a year and then come back on probation. So I guess I'm not expelled per se, but I'm taking an involuntary gap year. I got expelled in 2004 for inciting a riot. Heard this story of this dude who got kicked out for leaving on break to train with Al-Qaeda. When I was in college I got suspended 3 times for bad grades. At one point my GPA was a 1.0. I finally got it together and graduated with a degree in finance, and a few years later went back and got a second bachelor's in accounting. I think my GPA is a 3.2 now. I'm not working in finance or accounting because I can't find a job. I mostly just hate my life now and wish for death. Not Emmy, but happened to a teammate on my rowing team. He got busted for drinking, which isn't an expellable offense. But to get back at the RA that caught him, he ate into a bag, went to the guy's first floor window, and threw it into the RA's room. What made things worse is that the RA had a box fan in the window. The it hit it and sprayed everywhere in the room. Literally. The it hit the fan. He was promptly expelled. I spent too much time drinking and not going to class. I was a junior with a 1.6 overall GPA. University said they didn't need my ilk around there and would open my spot for someone who would appreciate it. This got my attention. I went to the dean and talked with him for a couple of hours trying to get back in. He said no. 19 out of 20 of you guys go back to doing the same thing. I told him I would be the exception. He gave me another chance. From then on out it was 4.0 every semester. I finally got my GPA up over 2.5 so I could graduate. I made sure and went back to the dean's office to thank him and tell him that I was that 1 out of 20 that made it. I was making a search engine for our school teacher evaluation page. It absolutely blew up in popularity and a large portion of the school was using it, about 5k views per day. Essentially it was like Grade My Professors except it used the evals that they force students to do at the end of the class as data. I also added features that made it more desirable to students. It became so popular that it was showing up on the front page of Google for certain teacher names. Some of those teachers had low ratings and got pissed off and complained. I had unintentionally violated IP laws because the evaluations were under password protections and my site was not. The only reason I didn't get expelled was because the dean of my department had my back. He did research and concluded the information should not have been private in the first place, then sent a public information request to make it so my project did not break the law. I definitely had people asking for my expulsion for a scary amount of time. Was expelled the first time I went to college. Back in the 90s. I remember on orientation day, we walked by the fraternities and my dad got all excited. Walked up to the Phi Kappa Taus, they were pretty cool. Acted all interested in me. I didn't look around anywhere else. Hell. I was 17 and very intimidated. I rushed them and turns out, they were massive party animals. I lived and worked 40 minutes away from school. And had a girlfriend back home. So far. Right? I scheduled all my classes at 7 to 11 am. It was hard to get up at 5 and drive into school and pay attention in a 1,000 seat lecture hall. So I started to stay at the frat house and blow off my classes. The first semester I got a 0.0. The next, I got a 0.33, 1D. I wasn't the only one expelled from school that year. Me and 4 other guys were competing for the lowest GPA. What a ducking waste. Stupid college is wasted on the young. I went back in my 30s and got my degrees. But I wasted a tremendous amount of time working at jobs for IT people. Lol, this thread would show up right before an exam I'm about to fail. I went to a private Christian university. And I have a friend who got expelled for supposedly exorcising a demon out of someone in the middle of a wide open courtyard. Obligatory, I'm not an expelled college student, but I knew a guy who got expelled from an Ivy League for getting caught with too much sugar. He works at California Pizza Kitchen now. I was expelled from my first university for having sex in the library. Well, for getting caught having sex in the library. I learned about a year later that the girl I had sex with did not get expelled. Because male privilege, etc. Personally knew a bright individual that was kicked out of a prestigious university for skipping too many classes. He showed up for the important classes. Got A's on all of the tests. But due to the fact that he had missed too many classes, he failed all of them. Must not have read that page of the handbook. He now works at the local grocery store and I see him when I come home on breaks. Edit. 2. College was Princeton. He was on a full ride. Not me, but a guy who lived on the floor below me my freshman year. Dude was already a nuisance. He got drunk and wandered into town one night. Broke a window on a private residence because he thought it was our dorm. Got arrested for breaking said window. When the school found out, they told him that if you got into any trouble either with the police or the school's internal justice system, which is actually decent, it's student run, then he would be thrown out. Same goes for getting transported to the local hospital due to excessive drunkenness. Cut to Halloween night when his roommate found him passed out covered in vomit on the floor of his dorm room. He tested positive for alcohol, marijuana, and sugar. I'm pretty sure he was kicked out before he got out of the hospital. Was expelled my second semester at a Northern school. Think Michigan, Montana, North Dakota. It was my second semester being an older transfer student from the mid-Atlantic. I ended up slipping on ice and fracturing my femur, my humerus and 2 fingers on ice outside my apartment. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital during that time recovering and doing PT. Finally got home. My apartment was 30 minutes away from campus. Since I couldn't drive nor did they have cabs I could afford or public transit. Ended up failing everything and having to move back home. Only a year later I find out about an office that can help you out with getting tuition back and expunging your record of classes due to medical issues. Had to wait a year to get back in. This year I'm finding myself in the same situation with aplastic anemia, but I only got diagnosed 1 week before my insurance expired. I'm 16 credits from graduation and I'm stuck with the bureaucratic processes of trying to take classes of the summer. It'll probably take me to mid-July, which means I have to come back in the fall to finish up. I'm about ready to give up. At UCSC a bunch of Porter students were expelled for stealing and cooking a $5,000 koi. Here's the article. Knew this one dude that was caught masturbated multiple times in a utilities closet. Yes, this is a throwaway. No, I am not him. Not me. But my best friend in college was expelled. He became a nasty drunk and threw a brick through his ex-girlfriend's window. His rich parents bailed him out and got him into the college that they worked for. Years later, he is sober and recently got married. He's probably still a duck nozzle though. Not me, but a friend. Let's call him Ben. Was expelled his sophomore year. Ben came from a very conservative Christian family. His father and grandfather were pastors. Ben went to the same religious college they did. That college had strict rules about dressing modestly and fraternization of opposite sexes. If I recall, there were different levels allowed that depended on age roll at school. Ben was caught off campus seeing a movie with a girl. Apparently they should have had a chaperone. I think it was also not the first time he had broken the rules. Ben was promptly expelled. His parents were so upset they sent him on a year-long mission overseas. Edited. Cute part more than upset. This is not my story. It's the story of a classmate. We will nickname him the Idiot. The Idiot was the top student in my promo in journalism school. This was a good school, known to create good journalists. This was because we had 4 mandatory internships in 4 different medias. The school already have partnership with said medias and choose the internship for you based on your preferences, your skills and your results. The Idiot got the best internship there was at my country most important newspaper. Think something like the New York Times. 3 weeks into it, the Idiot is caught for plagiarism. He is fired from the internship and immediately expelled from the school. In shame. Not us. I didn't show for my 2 classes on a Friday. I had an almost 2-hour commute every day and the classes on Friday were a joined class with our mentor to see if you were getting on well. And if you were, you would basically waste a good hour and a half while others moaned about how hard certain subjects were. We also had a class that was in preparation of mandatory test. You had 2 goes throughout 3 years. If you failed both you were done. Neither of these classes were mandatory. When I took the test the first time and got the highest score of anyone who took the test without ever being to the preparation classes, it surfaced that my mentor had actually decided that, since I was never in her class, I must have stopped attending altogether and expelled me. Loads of hassle after that. Decided to get my certificate for this test approved and then said duck you to the whole institution. I never went back to college or uni afterwards and I'm in a really good position in my career now. 6 years later, I'm bipolar. Rocked college and got straight A's while I was manic as it, sleeping 3 hours a night for several years. Drinking, drugs, partying and all that. Then I curled up in a dark hole and cried for several months and couldn't even hardly wake up enough to go to any of my classes. Got academic probation and told my advisors I had no idea what was happening to me. This wasn't the real me. Managed to pull off another year of straight A's and little to no sleep. Then I crashed again and did nothing but sleep for months on end, wanting nothing more from life than for it to end as soon as possible, please. By my own hand if necessary. This time I got kicked out completely. Fast forward a few more years of the mania depression cycles and it eventually got so bad that I stole a car while manic and drove 800 miles across the US on some paranoid delusional insanity. I thought I was phasing between alternate realities and the government was going to try to capture me and study me to see how I was doing it. Don't ask. Luckily I ended up in the hospital instead of jail and I got diagnosed finally. Now I take a duck ton of medicine. And I'm not quite so crazy anymore. The end. Our bipolar is leaking. My dad teaches at a Christian college. I was forced to attend because hey, free tuition. I lasted 1 year then got kicked out for not being godly enough. I was so duck unhappy. It was a stressful environment. Not the classes or professors, some of the nicest people ever. It was the students and RRD in my dorm that made it awful. I'm not social at all, or religious. I also don't like being awoken at 2 AM by other girls on my floor blasting pop music as loud as possible. So I'd often get confronted about my attitude, and why I didn't want to sit with my dorm mates at meal times. And they took my antisocialness as me being not right with the Lord. Currently I'm aware of a group of international students getting expelled from my school. They've been whispering to each other during exams in another language. And as luck would have it, my professor happens to speak that language and has been slowly building a case against them without their knowing it. The kids somehow also got the solutions to every homework and exam last semester, which is very similar to what we've been assigned this semester. However, the kids are so ducking lazy they blindly copy whole solutions, not realizing numbers are different. Sometimes units are metric and they answer in English. And one problem asked for something completely different than they solved for using the exact procedure to solve last semester's homework. They are absolutely ducked and I'm kinda excited to see it. One of them had a 3.75 GPA, was on the verge of being auto-admitted to our MSBS program. He's probably been cheating his whole college career. We're 2 semesters away from graduation. Plot twist, the advisor to that program is the instructor that is currently building the case against them. So basically that guy is mega ducked. Professor is a savage. He's been grading all their homework and exams like everything was fine, and one day unleashed a dossier of its justice to comb. Edit. Anyone interested in an update? Comb didn't expel anyone after all. They all just completely lost the homework portion of their grade. 20%. So they're probably all getting C's at best. I was expelled back in my 4th year of college. I've dealt with social anxiety since childhood and it came to a head in my 3rd year when I was having panic attacks frequently. I got help, but by then it was too late for my grades because I had been barely passing classes by the skin of my teeth. I was a 4th year Comp C major who didn't know how to program at all. I tried to get back on the horse after going through therapy for my anxiety, but I felt so defeated that my grade slipped further into the hole I had dug for myself. I think the quarter I got kicked out I had 2 Fs, 2 Ds and a C. The dean sent me a letter saying I was done with engineering. I took time to get my act together. Got a part-time job. Lived in a retold apartment with 7 people living in a space meant for 4 people at the absolute max. I worked minimum wage and realized I needed to finish school. I saw my undergrad counselor numerous times, who very graciously helped me. I needed to write out a contract addressed to the dean with my detailed plan on how I was going to prove I was worthy of being readmitted, and the classes I would take to qualify for graduation. It took a while, but I eventually managed to get readmitted by working my ass off, taking summer school courses which counted toward my major and getting a 3.0 average. Then following up by getting good grades once they let me back in. It was tough because I needed therapy for so many years, but I didn't want to accept it until my breakdown in my 3rd year. I wish I had gotten help sooner, but I truly thought I could handle it all on my own and I felt ashamed that I wasn't able to. But I'll say this. I don't regret for a second that I ended up getting help. I was a little embarrassed about it first, but I soon got over that. I still have some days where anxiety is in the back of my mind. But I'm a lot better now, and I graduated. If you're struggling in school, just know that even if you get kicked out, that doesn't mean it's the end for you if you honestly want to finish. Edit. I'm trying to respond to everyone who has questions, but since I'm getting quite a few replies and PMs, I might miss yours. Please message me again if I don't respond to your question, because I really want to reply to you. Everyone who is going through something similar and wants to know more deserves a response. Edit 2. I know I still haven't responded to a lot of people, but I have to go to work now, so I won't be able to get back to you guys as quickly. I'll still read through all the responses and reply to people when I have the chance during my breaks.